Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 10th anniversary of the Sustainable Backyard Tour. I'm here this morning with Paul Whitsitt, owner of the Kitchen House Coffee at the original Kitchen House Farm. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, good morning. Good to see you and pretend like I'm seeing everybody else. Yeah, this is our 8th year, I think, being on the Sustainable Backyard Tour. So I'm happy to participate. We actually, it breaks from the mold a little bit, I think, with the backyard tour because our backyard is actually right across the alley. My husband David and I live in a house right behind this property. We moved in the summer of 2012, and we were looking down on 2 condemned buildings and a trash-filled, weed-filled eyesore. And so I was new to St. Louis, but started looking into how we might be able to do something with this property. And as luck would have it, just 3 months later, this double lot went up for the city tax auction due to unpaid back taxes. So we were able to buy it just a few months after we moved in, just for the cost of the back taxes. Like I said, there were 2 condemned buildings on the property. You'll see my big growing area. One building had to come down. It was really beyond saving. This, the more historic building that sits here at the back of the lot, we were able to renovate and make it a usable space that I primarily use for the garden here. And someone who's actually done a lot of research on our neighborhood was able to share with me that this house, of course, is much older than an already very old neighborhood. It's probably built in the 1870s, and I'm told it was originally built as a little kitchen house or a summer kitchen. So it was serving some other large home that I don't know anything about. So at any rate, we did fix this up a little bit. The house that came down, I turned that into a growing area. We started calling this the Kitchen House, since I was told that's what it had originally been built as, and then we casually started calling this Kitchen House Farm. And then a year and a half or 2 years later, we opened a coffee shop up the street and decided to call that Kitchen House Coffee and connect the two. So a lot of what you see that I'm growing here and raising here are things that we use in the coffee shop. So in this kind of barren part of the garden, it looks pretty barren because we've got 8 or 9 chickens roaming around here. All right, so yeah, the white hens, where'd they go? They're there, inside. Leghorn breed. I got them through a not-for-profit called Second Hen. The woman who runs that not-for-profit, Erica Camp, was able to work out a deal with a commercial egg farmer, and periodically she'll get the call to come pick up 50 or 100 hens that she's able to rehome. So even though the commercial egg production facility no longer has a use for them, these girls still have a lot of happy life ahead of them, and egg laying. They're very consistent layers. So if someone's looking for hens, think of Second Hen as an option in the St. Louis area. Actually, I think they'll provide hens throughout the state. Yeah, and then above our hen house, we moved my beehives up there. So the hives have been great honey producers, and that's something we use a lot of at the coffee shop. The hens, if you get a hard-boiled egg at the coffee shop, you're going to know that came from our girls. Last year I got 200 pounds of honey out of these 2 hives. Far, far more honey than I've ever gotten before. And I've already pulled 180 plus pounds this year, so I think we're on track to beat that, because this is pretty early for harvesting honey. So the bees are doing a good job this year. 2 of our hens, these 2 leghorns, the 2 white girls, actually came from a not-for-profit called Second Hen, where they work with a commercial egg production facility and are able to rehome what we call spent hens that have already lived out their useful. Actually, we could look at my compost bins. I built these just out of wood pallets about, I guess, 8 or 9 years ago. And they're holding up okay, but they could stand to be rebuilt. I use a 3-bin setup. Right now, this is what I'm adding materials into, and I bring home compost from the coffee shop almost daily. So I get tubs of banana peels, coffee grounds, things like that, food waste from the coffee shop, plus waste from our home and from the garden. This middle bin here, this compost is pretty much cooked. It'll be ready for me to use in the fall when I'm amending the soil in the beds. And I've been storing leaf mulch here in this third bin, which I use as a cover over our plant beds. So what I really like about having actively using compost is, like I said, it's coming from the coffee shop, it's turning into compost, it's going into my beds where I'm growing things that we take up to the coffee shop. So it's kind of a cool, I'd say, sustainability circle. Yeah. So if we're gonna head over to the garden, the hens love hanging out in the shade on a hot day like this, so it's not unusual at all to see them grouped around under the shrubs over here. And I guess before we leave, Terry pointed out, I do have a rain barrel over here. I have to admit the connection between the gutter and the barrel broke, and I need to get that replaced to make it an active rain barrel again.
I guess you could talk a little bit about how you do water and get all this water, because otherwise it would be a lot of work to water all this bio sprinklers. It's a lot of work.
I water it by hand, by hose, so I don't know that you want to hear that.
It's a lot of work. Okay.
Up until a week ago. All right, so things look a little different on this side where I don't have chickens eating everything green. I do give chickens the run of the entire lot for a part of the year, but once I'm really just getting seedlings and seeds going here in the garden, the chickens really have to stay out because they like to eat young green things. We're looking at sweet peppers, okra. This is kind of my herb area, which we use heavily at the coffee shop. So thyme, basil, oregano, lavender, rosemary, tons of mint, which is taking over. You know, I'm sure dill you see sprinkled everywhere. So this is the bulk of my herbs. I've got sage and a few parsley and some things scattered around. This bed I have dedicated this year to a variety of tomatoes. I'm growing 5 or 6 different types of tomato plants. One thing that was fun this year, I got so many seedlings started, far more than I could ever use here at the farm. We did 2 different days over 2 different weekends this year. We did big seedling giveaways at the coffee shop, and that was a lot of fun. So people could come in and grab a coffee and leave with a tomato plant, a pepper plant, eggplant. So I think a lot of folks enjoyed that. I've got this hyssop kind of growing everywhere. It's a form of mint, but it flowers really beautifully and the bees love it. People do ask me how I get my rosemary plant so big. I always try to get it through the winter, so I do cover it. That's why these posts are here. I wrap a heavy gauge plastic around it through the winter, and usually that works. A few years ago I did lose it and had to start over. But yeah, it's great if you can. A lot of people just take it inside in pots, but if you can keep it in the ground and cover it, you can get your rosemary into a big bush like this. And I mentioned the lavender over here. The reason there are still hoops covering that is I also cover my lavender in the winter, and that has worked for many, many years with that patch of lavender. Then moving on to this bed, the bulk of this bed has been my lettuces, which are at their tail end. We've gotten, I think, almost 2 months of lettuces at the coffee shop out of the farm lettuce here. But it's about shot. You can see it's starting to flower, but that's fine because the chickens love it too. In addition, I've got fennel growing here. I've got beets that I've just started harvesting. We've got some great things planned for the beets at the coffee shop. I think we're going to do a cold soup with them and a beet salad, and maybe a beet special smoothie, which I think sounds amazing. This bed, are we going to go up that way? We can see.
Walking this way.
Yeah, this is carrots, Swiss chard, and I did have radishes in that bed. They've already been harvested and gone, and now it's cucumbers that are running things over there, which I have started harvesting already. Probably some of you are noticing that some of the carrots here are bolting. That's my fault. I get all my seed from Baker Creek heirloom seed, so everything I'm growing is heirloom varieties. And I picked 3 varieties of carrots from Baker this year. And when I settled in to actually plant my carrots and carefully read the seed packet, it specifically told me, do not plant this carrot in the spring. So I decided I would try it anyway, and it's doing exactly what I think Baker Creek was trying to tell me would happen. So we may not get carrots out of these first 2 rows, but the middle looks pretty good. This gorgeous bed I take no credit for. My good friend Kate from City House Country Mouse always shares a bed here at the farm with me. At least, Kate, I think we've done it 4 years?
I think it's 4 or 5.
4 or 5, okay.
Yeah.
So it's so fun to have Kate over here, not just because we chatter at each other, but she grows things that are amazingly beautiful that I know nothing about. So I'm always learning from Kate when we talk about what she's growing in this bed. Kate, you want to tell us what you've got going?
So last year I ended up doing more food, and Paul graciously let me do that at the beginning of the season. So we had this great season of like lettuces and radish. So this year again, early, I did just some early quick crops. But right now I'm kind of in between. We have these poppy pods over here that are the Hungarian red seed poppy from Baker Creek also. And we're gonna keep these on here and hopefully turn them, the seeds, into some baked good potential items in a little bit once they dry up and we can harvest the seeds from the pods. So I've had a blast doing this, and I have a little bit of space at home, but it's part sun and this is full sun, and Paul's been really wonderful about letting me see what I can crank out in this bed in full sun. So.
And Kate, you've been a host in years past, so people might have been to your yard at some point in the
over
last.
in the Shaw neighborhood. Lots of big trees right overhead.
And again, Kate's amazing florist, owns City House Country Mouse, which now has a brick and mortar retail space on the hill.
Yeah, we've been there a few years. What else do we have here? We have the Sarenth, which is this really cute little dainty flower. Some of it's starting to go to seed here with these dark seed pods, but the flowers are really pretty, and just that color, the blue-green color, I really like. It's almost like a eucalyptus reminder. And there's some cosmos in here getting ready.
You gave me some beautiful
different stuff.
snapdragons the other day, which are still blooming in our kitchen.
I just clipped some of those little snapdragons. So, and then I just reseeded my sort of next summer round of stuff, which is a bunch of basil, which can be edible or ornamental, and some marigolds. So it'll be fun to see what comes up. And then our sort of dahlias, which are just starting down here, which is the first thing that I grew here.
Yes.
Those handful of years ago. It's just like a full bed of dahlias.
Amazingly beautiful. Yeah. Trellising up these old ladders, I've got Chinese red noodle beans over here and lima beans over here, which I'm kind of excited about. I haven't grown lima beans before. So we'll see how that goes. I got mustard underneath them. And actually something Kate gave me starts for. This is borage, which I've never grown before, and I'm excited to see what it does. This bed that looks like it needs to go does need to go. My potatoes are ready to be harvested. I'm just waiting for our rains this week to stop. And hopefully, I've got, I think, about 5 different kinds of potatoes going in this bed. Then down at this end, eggplant, which I've got 2 varieties. I'm growing Rosita, which are just starting to form fruit. And my Nagasaki long, I've actually already been harvesting from that. So they're the long, dark purple. Let's see if they're, oh yeah, here we got a few. They get to be about a foot long or so when I harvest them typically. I've started harvesting garlic and decided it could use another week, but I think it's more than ready now. I harvested a little bit of garlic here, and one thing that's wonderful when I start harvesting things, it frees up bed space so I can get more stuff going. So I had leftover pepper and eggplant and basil seedlings, so where I've started harvesting, I've just started planting things in again. So the garlic's ready. As soon as, again, I'm kind of waiting for consistently dry days. This was my spinach bed. I had beautiful spinach. We used a lot of it at the shop. In fact, we're still finishing it out. We're doing a spinach feta scone. Have been for a couple of weeks. But at any rate, I took out the remains of the spinach because it bolts when it gets hot. And this is now my sweet potato bed. This was my onions. I harvested them. They're curing now inside the kitchen house. And the rest of this bed is a variety of collards and kale. And we will use this all year in the coffee shop. And I keep my kale going usually into December. And like I said, we've got sandwiches, superfood sandwich, salads. We use kale in a lot of things at the coffee shop. I guess I should point out, you're probably seeing these monstrous things in lots of my beds. This is amaranth, also called Love Lies Bleeding. They are edible. You can eat them like greens, like you would kale. You can cook it down and make greens with them. The flower is actually bundles of seeds, and that the grain is edible as well. I mostly grow them because of the beautiful seed kind of flower that it puts out. So they'll eventually are going to have big drooping red or golden flowers. I'm trying to see if any of them, yeah, this one's just starting. You see the red there? So this will actually turn into a plume that'll drop probably 2 feet. And these will keep getting bigger, and they'll get to be like this tall. And unfortunately, sometimes they get so heavy they just snap at the base and break. But when that happens, I drag it over to the chickens because they love these leaves. Ooh, and you know that back here, this part of the area used to get real swampy. And again, remember, I took out a house that did sit in this area. I planted those grasses, and that just took care of the water issues that I was having. So know that if you plant some natural grasses, that can help you sop up water in soil that's getting too much. This little bed over here, actually somebody had thrown out old kitchen cabinets in the alley, and I desperately needed some bed space. So that's now my hot peppers growing in that kitchen cabinet.